Good morning, my wonderful students, and welcome to Chapter 6. We're starting a new chapter, and it's called, so Lesson 1 is going to be called Solving Systems by Graphing. I'll explain what I mean by systems in a little bit, but what I want to do is give you time just to copy down this, the instructions, and the problem behind me. Ignore that for a while. We'll get to that in a little bit. So go ahead. I'm going to step off the screen and copy down this problem. Alright, so now that you've copied this down, what we have is, we have the word systems. Basically, system just means there's going to be two. So now instead of just dealing with one equation, we have two equations, right? So we can tell right here, you're going to be seeing this symbol a lot, just means that it's a system, okay? Now, hopefully you're starting to notice that this is in the y equals mx plus b, not that it matters right at this moment. But this kind of started off the same as our last chapter with graphing. So it says, is the point a solution of the given system? Okay, so again, what do we want to do? You want to label your point. Okay, so we come over here. This is an x. This is the y. Okay, x and y. That's all you have to do. And the first step is we're just going to take these two things and plug them back into this equation. So I'm going to rewrite this equation, but instead of y, I'm going to use my 4. So I have 4 equals, now what's my x? My x is 2, right? So equals 2, and then plus 2. Right, so you see how I have, all I did is I put in my x and the y. And I'm just going to see if those work. So, 4 equals 4. Obviously, what's 2 plus 2? 4. This checks out. So, before, if it was just a yes, we'd be done. But now we have to do it twice. So, I put a little check. That's good to go. Okay, so now we're going to do the same one again. Oops. Alright, so we're going to do the same one, except for we're going to take this equation, so I'm just going to write it right next to it. So I'm going to go, but instead of y, again, what am I going to use? My 4. So I'm going to go 4 equals, actually let me make that black. So I'm going to be 4 equals, now this time it says 3, so there's my 3, and then what's my x? My x is still the 2. So remember, this means times. So I'm going to put the 2 right next to it and go times, and then it says minus 2. So as I'm doing this, so I'm going to just drop down my 4, and it's going to equal, and then I'm going to go 3 times 2 is my 6, minus 2, drop down to 4, and then 6 minus 2 is 4. This one also checks out, so I can come over here and give this a check. And if you get 2 checks with this one point, then your answer is going to be yes. This point is a solution of this system. Okay, so make sure that you get all this written down. Hit pause right about now, and then we're going to put up a second equation. Alright, so you should already have number 1 completely copied down. Here's number 2. We have a new point. It's 6, 13. And we have 2 equations. We have y equals x plus 7 and y equals 2x minus 7. Again, because there's 2 of them, this is called a system. So, hit pause right now while I'm standing off to the side and write those 2 things down. All right. So, we're going to solve these again to see if this point is a solution. So, again, label, label, label. So, here's my x. Here's my letter y. And we're simply just going to substitute those back into these equations. So, here we go. We have y, which happens to be 13. So I'm going to put my 13 first. Equals, what's my x? My x is 6. and then plus 7. I'll go ahead and I'll do the other equation right next to it, just since we're doing this, we'll go a little bit quicker. So again, on the second one, we got y. There's my 13. I'm going to write that over here. Put my equal sign. Put my 2. And then again, this means times x, so x is 6. And then it says minus 1. All right, so hopefully you can see both of those. And now we're going to go ahead and solve. So again, this one looks, you go 13, you drop it down. 6 plus 7, that's 13. This one checks off. So we can put a little check next to that it does work. Now over here, where you drop down our 13, we go 2 times 6 is 12. 12 take away 1, so that's 13. 12 take away 1 is 11. This is a no. Okay, so this is a no. So over here, we're just going to put, no, it did not work. Okay? So for this to be true, both of them have to check out. And this one did, but this one did not. So if one of them does not work, then the answer to is no. All right, so that's how we're starting off this lesson. Again, it is just plugging in your point into these two equations, which we now call a system, and seeing if both equations work. So if you don't have all this down, I'll step off the screen, hit pause right about now, and copy it down. All right, now we're going to move on to the next part of this lesson, and actually what it says in the title is they're going to give you two equations or a system, and they're going to ask you to solve it by graphing. So if you need to, hit pause, create a coordinate plane. This is a 6 by 6. So I'm just going to step off, hit pause, copy down this problem, and make sure you do have a coordinate plane. Okay, so we have our two equations and we have our coordinate plane. Now, first thing I'm going to check, if I have to graph, I'm going to see if these are in y equals mx plus b. So I'm going to write that right above here, y equals mx plus b. And if they look like they're in that format, great. Because are the y's by themselves? Yep. Or is it followed by the equal sign? Yes. Is it followed by an x term, right? Very good. And then does it have a constant or a plane number at the end? If it does, then we have it pretty easy for graphing. Remember that the b stands for the y-intercept. So on this one, b is 2. And then the slope is what's in front of the x. So this m happens to be negative 1/2. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to graph this on my coordinate plane. And notice I am using two different colors just because I'm going to have two different lines on my graph, but that's just for teaching, right? You can just use pencil. So again, my y-intercept is 2, so I'm going to go to 2 and put a dot. And then my slope for this one, since it's a negative 1, means go down 1, but then over 2. So I'm going to go down 1, count over 2, 1, 2. Go down again, count over 2. So I'm putting me here. Down 1, over 2. And I should have enough, so I'm going to draw a line. Now, just to make a note, you will have paper that has coordinate planes or graph paper on it because sometimes when you do them by hand, you don't get that perfect line. So now I'm going to do my other line, the one in blue, and again, identify what is my y-intercept, what happens to be the 6, and what's my slope. Well, this is a positive 1/2. So that means I'm going to go up instead of down and still go over 2. So I'm going to go to 6, which is way over here at the top. And then it says go up 1, sideways 2. Well, I can't go up because I'm out of room. So I'm going to do the exact opposite. I'm actually going to go down and backwards. So you can do that. So I'm going to, instead of going up 1 and over 2, I'm going to go down 1 and backwards 2. So I should be right about here. Go down 1 again, backwards 2. I should be right about here. Down 1 and backwards 2, right about here. All right, so at that point, I'm going to graph that line. Now, so I have my 2 lines graphed. So technically, where is my answer? So my answer is going to be where the 2 lines meet, right? So my answer is going to be right there. That is my answer. Now, on graph paper, it'll be easier to see, but my answer to this one, it looks like it's at a -4 on the x. So I'm going to come down here to my problem, and I'm going to put down -4 for my x, and then it looks like I'm at a +4 for the y. So the answer to this system is -4, comma y, and it's this dot right here. Okay, so you see how we simply graph these 2 lines where they intersect is going to be your answer. And then you write it down as an ordered pair. All right, we'll do one more problem. So make sure that you do have everything copied down. All right, so we're going to be doing number 2. Go ahead and write down this system. So it's 2x minus y equals -5. And then this one says -2x minus y equals a -1. Okay, so write that down. There's our thing. I already took the liberty of putting the y equals mx plus b. See how I lined them up? And you can already see where we have a problem with this example, is that it's not in that form. So because of that, so make sure this is copied down, hit pause right about now. But because they're not in that, I rewrote them side by side. Because to make it easier to graph, I want to change these into y equals mx plus b. And I'm actually not even going to graph this one. So I'm just going to change it, and then I'll let you guys do the rest of the work. So again, to get into y equals mx plus b, I want to move the x term. So that was a positive. I'm going to go minus. I'm going to drop down my negative y equals. Now, these are not like terms, so do not add them up. Now, I still have a negative in front of that y, which is not acceptable. So I'm going to make it a 1, and I'm going to divide everything by -1. And all -1 is going to do is change everyone's answer. It's going to be y equals positive 2x plus 5. So there's the equation you're going to have to graph, one of them. Here's the second one. So on this one, again, I don't want the 2x over here. So I have to do the opposite. So the opposite of this one happens to be a positive 2x. Positive 2x. Again, make sure you drop down that negative y. These are not like terms, so I go 2x plus 1. Oh, I'm sorry, it's a -1. So I'm just going to drop down to the minus. So 2x minus 1. And then I'm going to insert a -1 here and divide everything again by -1. Or whatever's in front of the y. So we get y equals, now a -1 will change his sign, so it'll be -2x. And a negative divided by a negative is a positive 1. So those are the 2 equations, and now you're going to have to graph, which should be relatively easy. There's your slope, there's your y-intercept, and where they cross will be your answer. So make sure you finish up that problem, and as always, have a math-tastic day.